6 of Pontus, Pompey conquered the Seleucid kingdom, which became a Roman province called Syria. The warring brothers, who saw a mighty army camped near them, appealed to Pompey to decide between them. 3 delegations then appeared before Pompey, one sent by Aristobulus, one sent by Hyrcanus, and another from the people, who demanded to abolish the Hasmonean dynasty, which had transformed the rule of the priests into the rule of kings. Pompey heard their delegations but refrained from deciding. Eventually, in 63 BCE, Pompey invaded Judea, conquered Jerusalem, desecrated the Holy of Holies, imprisoned Aristobulus, and declared Hyrcanus an ethnic, a title inferior to the title king. Judea then became a vassal kingdom of the Roman Republic. Early Roman period, 63 BCE 70 CE. After Pompey's conquest of Judea in 63 BCE, Hyrcanus too assumed the role of ethnic. However, his advisor Antipater was ruler in practice and managed the kingdom's affairs. Some cities which were conquered by the Hasmoneans were removed from Judean rule, including Azotus, Jaffa and Samaria, as well as Scythopolis and several cities in Transjordan, which formed the semi-autonomous Decapolis. Hyrcanus II's rule was unstable. Alexander II, Aristobulus II's son, raised a large army and seized Jerusalem, forcing Hyrcanus to leave the city. The Roman general Aulus Gabinius invaded Judea in retaliation, sent Hyrcanus back to Jerusalem, and reinstated him as high priest. When Caesar's civil war broke out, Julius Caesar attempted to install Aristobulus on the throne. However, Aristobulus was poisoned and his son Alexander, who was preparing to support him, was beheaded at Antioch at the command of Pompey. Antipater and his sons Phasael and Herod gained status and power at the expense of the Hasmonean dynasty's waning power. When the Parthians invaded the area in 40 BCE, they installed Antigonus II Mattathias, Aristobulus II's youngest son, as king. Phasael committed suicide, and Hyrcanus II was taken as a prisoner to Babylon after having his ear severed in order to prevent him from ever acting as high priest again. Herod, who fled the Parthians, found his way to Mark Antony, who then controlled the eastern part of the Roman Republic. In agreement with his co-ruler Augustus, who controlled the western part, the two decided to appoint Herod as king of Judea, and sent him with an army to seize the throne. In 37 BCE, Jerusalem was taken after a siege, and Antigonus was captured and executed. Herodian dynasty. In 37 to 36 BCE, Herod the Great was appointed king of the Jews by the Roman Senate. The kingdom of Judea during his period is also referred to as the Herodian kingdom. As a close and loyal ally to the Romans, Herod extended his rule as far as Arabia and the Huron. Herod undertook many colossal building projects, including fully rebuilding the Second Temple and expanding the Temple Mount, and founding Caesarea Maritima as a major port city. Herod also constructed the enclosure around the Cave of the Patriarchs in Hebron, the fortress at Masada, and Herodium. The Herodian kingdom under Herod experienced a period of growth and expansion. After Herod's death in 4 BCE, the kingdom was partitioned to several parts to each of his 3 sons, initially 4 parts, forming the Tetrarchy. The central part of the Tetrarchy was given to Herod Archelaus, including Judea proper, Idumea and Samaria. Herod's death in 4 BCE caused the release of built-up frustrations of the people who were suppressed by his brutality. Many people were impoverished because of Herod's high taxes and spending. When he died, his building projects that once allowed for job opportunities were stopped, and many people lost their jobs. This built up frustrations that ultimately contributed to the causes of the First Jewish-Roman War. 65. Roman Judea. In 6 CE, the country fell into unrest, and the Herodian ruler of Judea was deposed in favor of forming the new Judea province under direct Roman rule. 66. The Roman province of Judea extended over parts of former regions of the Hasmonean and Herodian kingdoms. It was created in 6 CE with the census of Quirinius and merged into Syria Palestina after 135 CE. Jerusalem reached a peak in size and population during the late Second Temple period. 67, 68. The majority of scholars estimate that city's population at that time to have been between 70,000 and 100,000. 69, 70. 71, 72. Herod II ruled Icaria and Trachonitis until his death in 34 CE, when he was succeeded as tetrarch by Herod Agrippa I, who had previously been ruler of Chalcis. Agrippa surrendered Chalcis to his brother Herod and ruled in Philip's stead. On the death of Herod Antipas in 39 CE, Herod Agrippa became ruler of Galilee. Reconstruction of Herod's temple. Reconstruction of Herod's temple in the Holy Land model of Jerusalem port of Caesarea Maritima. The port of Caesarea Maritima Herodium. Herodium, a palace fortress built by Herodotus, and in 41 CE, as a mark of favor by the Emperor Claudius, succeeded the Roman prefect Marullus as ruler of Judea. The era from roughly 4 BCE to 33 CE is also notable as being the time period when Jesus of Nazareth should have lived, primarily in Galilee under the reign of Herod Antipas. It is therefore considered in specifically Jewish history as being when Christianity arose as a messianic sect from within Second Temple Judaism. First Jewish-Roman War. In 66 CE, the Jews of Judea rose in revolt against Rome, sparking the First Jewish-Roman War, 66 to 73 CE, also known as the Great Jewish Revolt. Flavius Josephus, a contemporary Jewish historian who fought as the commander of Jewish forces in Galilee but later defected to the Roman side, chronicled the events of the war in his book The Jewish War. The hill where ancient Jodphat stood, the ruins of Gamla, stone piles near the western wall thought to have been enthroned by Roman legionaries during the destruction of the Second Temple. Vespasian, an experienced Roman general, was sent by Emperor Nero to crush the rebellion. He arrived at Ptolemy along with legions X Fretensis and V Macedonica. There he was joined by his son Titus, who arrived from Alexandria at the head of Legio 15 Apollinaris, as well as by the armies of various local allies including that of King Agrippa II. During the Galilee campaign, many towns surrendered without a fight, and others were taken by force. Jodphat, a fortified town in the Lower Galilee, was besieged for 47 days before it fell to treachery. The city was razed, many people were killed, and the rest were enslaved. Gamla, the major Jewish stronghold in the Golan Heights, fell after a 1-month siege. Following a lull in military operations caused by civil war and political turmoil in Rome, Vespasian was summoned to Rome and appointed emperor. In early 70 CE, Titus moved to besiege Jerusalem, the center of rebel resistance in Judea. The city had been taken over by several rebel factions following a period of massive unrest and the collapse of a short-lived provisional government. The first 2 walls of Jerusalem were breached in 3 weeks, but the Roman army was unable to breach the third and thickest wall due to a stubborn rebel standoff. According to Josephus, a contemporary historian and the main source for the war, the city was ravaged by murder, famine and cannibalism. 73, on Tisha B'Av, 70 CE, the 30th of August, 74, Roman forces finally overwhelmed their defenders and set fire to the temple. 75, resistance continued for another month, but eventually the upper and lower parts of the city were taken as well, and the city was burned to the ground. Titus spared only the 3 towers of the Herodian citadel as a testimony to the city's former might. 76, 77, Josephus wrote that The Arch of Titus in Rome depicts Roman triumph celebrating the fall of Jerusalem. The procession includes the menorah and other Second Temple vessels. Over 1 million people perished in the siege and the subsequent fighting. 78. While contemporary studies dispute this figure, all agree that the siege had a major toll on human life, with many people being killed and enslaved, and large parts of the city destroyed. After the fall of Jerusalem, Titus returned to Rome, leaving the remaining Jewish strongholds, including Herodium and Machaerus, to the Roman legions. The war ended in 73 to 74 CE with the siege of Masada. According to Josephus, the siege resulted in the mass suicide of the Sequitu rebels and resident Jewish families, though the historicity of the mass suicide is debated. Aerial view of Masada, the last stronghold of the first Jewish Roman war. The Roman siege ramp appears to the right. Aftermath. 2 generations after the First Jewish-Roman War, the Bar Kokhba Revolt, 132 to 136 CE, erupted. One reason seems to be the re-establishment of Jerusalem as a Roman colony under the name of Aelia Capitolina. The revolt was brutally suppressed by the Romans and resulted in the extensive depopulation of Judean communities, more so than during the First Jewish-Roman War of 70 CE. 79, 80. Some scholars have described these events as genocide. 80. According to Cassius Dio, 580,000 Jews perished in the war and many more died of hunger and disease. 50 fortresses and 985 villages were destroyed. In addition, many Judean war captives were sold into slavery. 81. Some modern historians assert that Dio's numbers were somewhat exaggerated. 82. But based on archaeological evidence, virtually all scholars support Dio's claim of massive depopulation. 83. The revolt put an end to Jewish aspirations for the reconstruction of Jerusalem and the Temple, as well as, more concretely, for Jewish settlement in the region of Judea. 84. The province of Judea was renamed Syria Palestina. 85. 86. Jewish presence in the region significantly dwindled after the failure of the Bar Kokhba revolt. 87. Nevertheless, there was a continuous small Jewish presence and Galilee became its religious center. 88, 89. Jewish communities also continued to reside in the southern Hebron Hills and on the coastal plain. 79. The Mishnah and part of the Talmud, central Jewish texts, were composed during the 2nd to 4th century CE in Tiberias and Jerusalem. 90. Over the next centuries, more Jews emigrated to flourishing communities in the diaspora. Others remained in the land of Israel, and some converted to Christianity. 91. Jewish historians occasionally refers to this time period, which corresponds with the world's late antiquity, as the rabbinic or Talmudic period. After the destruction of the Second Temple, Judaism separated into a linguistically Greek and a Hebrew / Aramaic sphere. 92. 811. The theology and religious texts of each community were distinctively different. 92. 1113. Hellenized Judaism never developed yeshivas to study the oral law. Rabbinic Judaism, centered in the land of Israel and Babylon, almost entirely ignores the Hellenized diaspora in its writings. 92. It is unknown whether Hellenized Judaism ultimately vanished as its adherents assimilated into Christianized Greco-Roman society, or if it persisted as a distinct, Bible-oriented community that latter affected the development of Karaite Judaism. 92. 1416. By the 1st century, the Jewish community in Babylonia, to which Jews were exiled after the Babylonian conquest as well as after the Bar Kokhba revolt in 135 CE, already held a speedily growing, 93, population of an estimated 1 million Jews, which increased to an estimated 2 million, 94, between the years 200 CE and 500 CE. both by natural growth and by immigration of more Jews from the land of Israel, making up about 1/6 of the world Jewish population at that era. 94. Religion. During the 600 years of the Second Temple period, multiple religious currents emerged and extensive religious developments occurred. The development of the Hebrew Bible canon, the synagogue, Jewish eschatology can all be traced back to the Second Temple period. According to Jewish tradition, prophecy ceased during the early Second Temple period. This left the Jews without